Happening now on Grid Tonight. We'll preview this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans. Can the other hypercar manufacturers take the fight to Toyota after a last-minute balance-up performance adjustment? Another big announcement made this morning at Le Mans. Toyota factory driver Kamui Kobayashi will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut at the IMS Road Course later in the summer. Can the star Japanese driver turn some heads in competitive equipment? On the IndyCar side of things, Conor Daly and Carpenter Racing have parted ways. Is this the end of Daly's full-time IndyCar career and the first step for ECR to start rebuilding the entire program? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me, Ben Snyder filling in for Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat below and ask as many questions as you'd like. Now, here's Ben with our top story this evening. A special motorsports celebration is happening in France this weekend.
Thank you, Kobe. Thankful as always for the chance to fill in for Josh as he gets ready for his Le Mans coverage this weekend. And like you mentioned, Kobe, this event's been circled on many people's calendars for such a long time. A 24 Hours of Le Mans, but twice around the clock French endurance classic. Le Mans is a bucket list item that people from all around the world want to attend this year more than ever, being the Centenary edition, a strong 62-car field from the 91st running of a 24-hour race and the 100th anniversary since the first Le Mans took place back in 1923. If you want to put the magnitude of the Centenary into perspective, NBA superstar LeBron James is going to serve as the honorary starter, and NFL legend Tom Brady is also sponsoring a Porsche in the hypercar class. Kobe, compared to previous Le Mans races, is this the most intense build-up to the race that you can remember in recent memory?
Definitely, Ben. I've never seen such a buildup leading up to Le Mans, and not just in recent weeks. It's been months of buildup to this one day, the 100 years of Le Mans, the 91st running, the hypercar class, which is really the main draw here. People have been excited ever since IMSA and the ACO and the FIA all come together, and they decide that we're going to have a common set of prototype regulations where you can run the same car in IMSA and bring it over to Le Mans. You can run the same car over at Le Mans and bring it over to IMSA. For so many years, we've been divided in prototype regulations on both sides of the ponds, and now we're finally unified, and we have all of these great manufacturers that are going to be going for the overall win. And a lot of people have done this as the beginning of a new golden age for prototype racing in sports cars. The first year where we're seeing the LMDH and the LMH cars together is, I think we're set to have a really good race. And as the years go on, when more manufacturers come in, the competition is just going to get more competitive over time. And I think we're going to see some really great racing this year and the years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just tell from looking at the pictures from the practice sessions and part one of qualifying today, it is rammed at Le Mans. There is not a spare ticket going anywhere. 300,000 people expected to be there over the weekend. Many of them already there. There was so many people there on Sunday for the test day. It is the hot ticket item in motorsport this year, apart from the extremely expensive ones for Las Vegas Grand Prix in November. But yeah, big anniversary. All these manufacturers coming in as we've been building up to this for the last kind of couple of years now, really. And as we're going to get to talk about, they're all in with a chance of grabbing the trophy on Sunday afternoon. It's looking like it might be a very spicy couple of 24 hours, in fact, over the weekend at Le Saf.
Now, entering the Le Mans test day, the ACO made a big announcement about the balance of performance, or BOP for short, for the hypercar class. Toyota Gazoo Racing will run at a heavier weight to slow them down a bit. This will potentially open the door for other manufacturers to make some noise. In both sessions of the test day, Ferrari, of course, were the fastest, but Toyota was still in the mix. It's too early to tell who will ultimately have the upper hand BOP-wise. So, Matt, could the BOP adjustment lead to a more competitive race in hypercar? And were you caught off guard about this last-minute change right before Le Mans?
To be honest, I wasn't surprised. If you've seen any of the first three races at Sebring, Portimao and Spa, Toyota have been gone, absolutely in the distance compared to everybody else. Ferrari have had the one-lap pace. They showed that again today in the part one of the qualifying with the fastest time. But Porsche are in the mix now as well. They were fastest in the second free practice session, which wrapped up about 10 minutes ago, just before we came on air. But yeah, they had to do something because okay, all these manufacturers coming in are new, and they've got a bunch of new drivers in there, all new technology for all these teams. And Toyota have been there for the last couple of years with a variation of this car and their technology, and have plenty of experience, of course, of this race. And they had to peg them back in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, after the first, I don't know, couple of hours on Saturday, the race could be done, depending on obviously mechanicals or that kind of thing. But on pure pace wise, Toyota have been the standout over the first 3 World Endurance Championship races. So I wasn't surprised that this happened. There's been a lot of back and forth between fans of all the manufacturers on social media since about it. But as long as we get what we hope over the weekend, which is going to be a great race between a multiple of cars, then I'm all for it. That session that's just wrapped up, there's 16 cars in the hypercar class. 15 of them were covered by 2.5 seconds on a 3.5-minute lap. So there's a lot of people that are going to be in play during the race over the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think all of the manufacturers are really showing their full hang yet. Typically, when we're in practice and qualifying, we'll see some of the manufacturers show what they got, but others, they'll wait till like later on in the race to completely come alive. And watching Le Mans over the years, you'll see like one manufacturer be completely out of it for most of the race, and then once we get past hour 12 and the 13, 14, 15, and so on, then all of a sudden you're like, where did that pace come from? We haven't seen that yet. So I'm sure all of the manufacturers have their different game plans, and the ones who haven't really shown much potential so far will eventually rise to the top. And I'm glad that ACO made this BOP change. And as you mentioned, Matt, the first few races of the year, it was been a Toyota Gazoo Racing runaway, and nobody else could really compete. And with this one being such a special event, 100th anniversary of the first 24 hours of Le Mans, I think it was very important for them to try to make sure we get the most competitive race possible. And I think we are going to see a more competitive race. Toyota Gazoo Racing may end up winning it after all, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as it's been winning the other races that we've seen so far this season.
Well, Kobe, there's certainly no shortage of competition. There are 16 hypercars going for the overall win, 7 in LMDH and 9 in LMH, 4 Porsches, 3 Cadillacs, 2 Ferraris, 2 Toyotas, 2 Peugeots, 2 Glickenhauses, and a Van Wall. The premier prototype category is the main draw, and many have been looking forward to this race for a handful of years now since the common prototype regulations were announced. So, Kobe, which manufacturer stands the best chance at preventing Toyota from getting a 6th consecutive overall win at Le Mans?
I think it definitely has to be Ferrari. Ferrari's been strong in the test day, been strong in practice, been strong in the qualifying sessions that's been going on. I think Ferrari so far, it looks like they've benefited the most from all of the balanced performance adjustments that the ACOs made right before the race. And if we're thinking about early pick-a-winner favorites, I don't think you can go wrong by picking either the number 50 or the 51 Ferrari AF Corsa. 499P. I certainly think the Prancing Horse will have a great chance to get the job done this year at Le Mans. But who knows? I think it's going to be quite wide open this year, and it's really going to be anybody's game. But if I had to look at the favorites next to Toyota, definitely have to go with the Ferrari, and I think Porsches look strong as well. It seems like the Cadillacs still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kobe. As I said before, Ferrari have been the strongest. They've tried to take it to Toyota in the 3 WEC races we've had so far, and have, as I say, shown better one-lap pace. It just hasn't come across in the race. Porsche, of course, got that win in IMSA at Long Beach. Very, very different race and racetrack to this. They've been on the pace at times and just topped the session, which is just finished with the number 6 car. And if they're where they are, Cadillac haven't been so far behind them with the blue number 2, which has been running in the WEC throughout the season. So I think it's probably between those 4, Ferrari, Toyota, Porsche, and to wave the American flag for you guys for Cadillac. Hopefully they can get up there and get amongst it. Peugeot have not looked very good really all season. They had a terrible Sebring. They've been getting better, but they look like they kind of foregone any chance of running a quick time in qualifying. They were the only of the big manufacturers not to make it to the hyperpole session, which we'll get tomorrow, which is basically a pole runoff, a bit like we have at Indianapolis. And they look like they're concentrating on the race pace. Matthew Owens, good evening, Matthew. Just another opportunity for me to get my hopes up for a Ferrari to find a way to let me down. Well, let's hope not. They have done, as I say, very well so far over the WE season that they've had. Okay, pace hasn't quite been there against the Toyota, but with all these changes, it does look like it's brought everybody back into the game.
Well, let's move on now to LMP2, stacked with 24 entries in that class. A deeply talented field. It will be hard to correctly pick a winner from this category. The likes of Prema, Team WRT, Alpine, and United Autosports always stand out. But there are plenty of other potential race-winning organizations in this class as well. So, Matt, which LMP2 driver lineup is the most intriguing in your eyes?
It's basically a spec series now at LMP2. Everybody is running the same car, same tyres. So it is going to be down to potentially the strongest driver lineup and your weakest element being the strongest against the other team's weakest element. If I had to pick, I can't tear myself between WRT or United to win in LMP2. There is the sheet there of everybody. United looking good. That Phil Hansen, Philippe Albuquerque, and Frederick Luban car is probably the stronger of the two. But young Portlander Josh Pearson there in the other car with IMSA champions Tom Blomqvist and Oliver Jarvis is no slouches either. So those in WRT I think are my two picks. Prema will be in the mix. Inter Europol will be in the mix. Don't count out Jota. It's going to be a 24-hour street fight in LMP2.
Yeah, definitely. It always seems to be a street fight in LMP2 class. Lot of great entries, lots of great drivers. It's really hard to choose one driver lineup that can go out there and win, because pretty much most of the field can go out there and get it done. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with one of the full-time entries. That'll be the number 63 from Prima Racing, Mirko Bortolotti, Danny Kvyat, and Dorian Penn. And I know they look very strong at Sebring at the beginning of the season, and then the next two races not really gone their way. But I certainly think they have a strong team behind them, obviously, and three great drivers. And I really believe that they could really make some noise, and just imagine, for Dorian Penn, been a French driver, been able to win at home, that would be really special for her, and I'm sure that would give everybody on the Friday Women in Motorsports show a lot of great things to talk about.
And moving on, 21 entries for the final Le Mans for the LM GTE AM class. The GTE spec cars will be going away at the end of this year in favor of the GT3 spec cars. Next year's category will be known as LM GT3, which could bring some new manufacturers to GT racing at Circuit de la Sarthe's prestigious event. So, Kobe, what are you going to miss most about the GTE era, and what are you most excited about looking forward to the future of LM GT3?
Yeah, I think the future of LMGT3 is really bright. I know we're probably going to learn a lot more about this class by the end of the week, because typically on the Friday but before the race, they have this big press conference where they make a lot of announcements. So I assume we're going to learn some more things about this category. I know one of the big things that's been rumored is that since there's so many GT3 manufacturers from around the world, that they might just cap it to two, where, for example, Corvette will only be allowed to have two cars, Ferrari will only be allowed to have two, Porsche, Aston Martin, no more than two cars, and then you get to pick the teams to run them. I think that would certainly be an interesting concept. Not sure what they're gonna do with that, but I certainly think that the future of LMGT3 is really bright, but definitely it's quite the end of an era in GTE. I really missed the GTE Pro class. Had some really good battles during the mid to late 2010s. And unfortunately, that class went away since the market spoke for itself. Not much interest. GTM, looking forward to a great race this year. And one of the most interesting stories to come out today is from Sportscar 365, that it was able to confirm that the Corvette racing team is not going to be around next year, since the new LMGT3 class that is not going to allow full factory back team. So definitely the end of an era with Corvette racing doing this last Le Mans under that name. And as Corvette will be shifting to a customer driven program, we've seen the factory back Corvette racing team for such a long time on both sides of the Atlantic. It's certainly not going to be the same without them moving forward. and gonna catch up on some comments quick in the chat room. Matthew Owenson, good morning to all of you. Good morning to you as well, Matthew. I'm sure you're still over there in France since you're saying that. And Adam Limmer says that you can see Ferrari on the podium at Le Mans. For sure, they certainly have the pace right now, and we'll see if they're able to put together a full race.
Yeah, it's really going to be a shame to see these GTE cars go away. Kind of the regulations bob and weave their way all the way back for about 20 years. Who can forget those Corvette versus Aston Martin battles, as Kobe mentioned, at the back end of the noughties, and Ferrari and Porsche have been in there. BMW, of course, from time to time. The Ford program with the GT as well 5 or 6 years ago. But it's really going to be another interesting category to try and pick from. A lot of good cars and good drivers in there. Real shame if that is going to be the end of Corvette Racing and Pratt & Miller. This is their final hurrah then with that car, which has already found the fence today with Nicky Katzberg at the wheel in free practice one, crashed at Terre Rouge after a wheel came off after a late pit stop in the session. So they have some work to do to get that back going. But yeah, real shame. Been a stalwart of the race, as I say, for 20 plus years now. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with LMGT3. And as Kobe mentioned, we may get some more details on that on Friday. And if we do, we may well end up be discussing it on the show next week as part of the fallout from the race. But thank you to all the GT manufacturers that have been in the GT and GT2 category over the years. They've provided us some fabulous racing and some great memories as well.
And last but not least, Garage 56, the NASCAR Cup Series car from Hendrick Motorsports, has definitely earned plenty of attention at Le Mans during the build-up to the race. The specially modified number 24 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 showed up to the test day and exceeded expectations in lap times. It's right in the ballpark with the GTEM cars. In the second and final test session, the Garage 56 NASCAR entry was actually faster than the whole GTEM field, 5.545 seconds quicker in today's opening practice session than the fastest GTEM car. In a collaborative effort with in a collaborative effort between Hendrick Motorsports, NASCAR, and Goodyear, they've managed to unlock some great potential from this special car. Some expected the Garage 56 Cup car to be the slowest car on track, but that's clearly not the case. Photo taken by Chris Gratham from Getty Images. Matt, how excited are you to see what Garage 56 can do during the race?
Yeah, we've been building up to this on the show over the last month or two. And it looks like it's, as you say, exceeding expectations. There's been a lot of talk about how this car would or wouldn't go. The driver lineup is stacked. They've already got a trophy to their name because they won the pit stop competition that they ran on Wednesday. So it's already been a productive week for the team. How will they fare in the race? The car looks fabulous. Great to see a NASCAR with actual working headlights, not stickers. They've been using those in that session that's just wrapped up a little while ago. So that was cool to see. It is a jet down the straight, down the Mulsanne, much quicker than the GT cars there. It's going to make its lap time, of course, in very different ways to them. There was some talk about where it would land. It does look like it might be just ahead of those cars, but once we get into proper race trim, who knows? And I guess the team kind of goal for the weekend is A, get through the race one unscathed with no problems, and B, beat as many or all of the GT cars as it can to the end of the result sheet on Sunday. So been a very productive week for the team so far. Let's hope for them that they can continue that into the weekend.
And for members of the NASCAR industry who have made the trip across the pond to France, they've already experienced the trip of a lifetime at Le Mans. During scrutineering, fans were flocking to the Garage 56 NASCAR Cup car like they were offering free food. For many European racing fans, it's an extremely rare opportunity for them to see a NASCAR stock car in person. Even Ferrari team members walked up to the car and took photos. When the car hit the track during the test day, it was impossible to ignore the roar of the V8 engine. Fans who were trackside watched in awe as the Cup car tackled Circuit de la Sarthe with drivers Jimmy Johnson, Jenson Button, and Mike Rockenfeller. Hendrick Motorsports have truly been soaking in the experience and everyone's appreciation for NASCAR. This experience is completely different than anything Johnson, Chad Ganous, or Greg Ives have ever done in their careers, but nobody at HMS will forget this surreal moment. Photo on your screen courtesy of the FIA. Matt, were you expecting to see the Garage 56 NASCAR entry receive such a positive welcome from both the fans and the paddock?
To be honest, no. The kind of when it got announced, it was like, oh my God, really? NASCAR at Le Mans? What's this? But, they've done all that testing at Sebring and other places over the last couple of months. They've got the car there. It looks the part. It goes well. It sounds terrific from the videos that the fans were shooting at the test day last weekend. And yeah, it looks like it's just slotted in like a hand in glove. Is going to be probably its only run in a race, potentially. Looks like it's going to be at the Goodwood Festival Speed in a couple of weeks with Jensen taking up the hill. So that'll be cool to see. But yeah, it does look like it's come across very well with the fans in attendance and all of us watching on, and of course commenting on social media. So let's hope it goes as well as the reception it's got so far.
And a comment from Upright Fossil, one of our regulars in the chat room, watched the design engineer talk about the modifications to get this beast into Le Mans. Impressive. Certainly already, I think, a success, what this Garage 56 entry has been. I think just as long as they run all the laps, finish the race, and complete all 24 hours, it's certainly going to be a resounding success to take back home with this Garage 56 entry and NASCAR partnership here. Matthew Owen says, all I would like to see out of this experiment would bring more eyes to Le Mans in the United States and bring more media exposure and bring in a big broadcaster for the race, into the race for the future. Yeah, completely agree there. The television coverage, I think, has been lacking a little bit with Motor Trend in the last couple of years or so. Upright Fossil adding Euro NASCAR will definitely be getting a big boost from this, no doubt. I think that this is another important thing to remember, and lots of layers to consider here with how positive momentum this could provide for NASCAR, not just here in the United States, but over in Europe as well and all around the world. And Matthew adding on, of course, no disrespect to Motor Trend, but I don't know how many people in the U.S. can find it on their TVs. This is why we need speedback. Certainly no argument from me there. Yeah, I mean, I got to say, it was difficult for me to find the channel as well. I mean, I believe I had access.
Oh, Ben has potentially frozen on us. It looks like he has. Hopefully Kobe can still hear me and we are still on the air, but it looks like
yes, I'm still here with you. yeah.
And it's frozen in time with the excitement about watching the race over the weekend.
Ben's face that definitely says it all. The 24 hours Le Mans is a really exciting thing. And the Garage 56 entry is obviously, captured a lot of people's attentions all over the world, whether it's people watching here back home in the United States looking forward to seeing the NASCAR entry, or everyone across the pond who's going to be super excited to see how this is going to go. And got another comment in the chat from Adam Lemery saying yes, he agrees. Bring back the Speed Channel. I remember during my first few days of watching the 24 Hours Le Mans, I remember watching that on Speed, and then it went over to FS1, and then it went over to Motor Trend on demand, which I am using online. So really looking forward to this year's race. So Matt, looking at all throughout the field in the other classes, what's something else that you're going to be looking for in this year's race?
I don't know. I mean, all of the focus from probably television, unless something's happening with cars off the road or something happening in the pit lane, is going to be hypercar. It is going to be the main focus. I'm just curious to see how it goes. As you said, once we get into the night, who's going to go, time to go now? Is it going to be like a Porsche that's 6th or 7th and well back, and suddenly they decide it's time to get racing? There's images already in my mind, even though the race hasn't happened yet, of all of those cars on that first lap down the Mulsanne lined up on with obviously the excitement of the start of the race. It's just going to be a great sight to see. And with all these more manufacturers potentially coming over the next couple of years, it's just going to get better and better. Ben is back with us.
So that's the strangest thing I've ever had happen. My internet didn't go out. Everything was completely fine. I could load other websites. It's just StreamYard was unavailable for 2 minutes. I have no idea what happened. It sounded like it was completely fine on your guys' end. So I don't know what happened. We love technology over here. Just every time you think something different can't go wrong, it rears its ugly head and something unprecedented happens here. But Sounds like we're back, and I don't know how much of my rambling on there on the chat comments you guys got to hear, but I guess are we ready to move on to the further NASCAR news that was broken today? Are we ready to do that?
Yes, we are.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on to our second story then. Next, some NASCAR news happening over at Le Mans. Toyota Gazoo Racing Hypercar driver Kamui Kobayashi will make his Cup Series debut at the IMS Road Course. Kobayashi will drive the same number 67 Toyota for 2311 racing that Travis Pastrana drove in the Daytona 500. He'll be the second Japanese driver ever to compete in the Cup Series and the first to do so in a Toyota. The first Japanese-born driver to compete in Cup was Hideo Fukuyama 2 decades ago. We've seen 3 other Japanese-born drivers also compete in Xfinity and trucks: Akinori Ogata, Kenko Miura, and Shigeaki Hattori. Now, Kobayashi joins a growing list of drivers from other disciplines of motorsport who have competed in NASCAR since the debut of an next-gen car last year, such as Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button, Jordan Taylor, and Shane Van Gisbergen coming up in Chicago. The photo on your screen, courtesy of Chris Gratham from Getty Images. Matt, are you thrilled to see Kamui Kobayashi drive a Cup car? And I've got to say, the first thought that came to my mind was we might have to start calling this the Project 67 entry for 2311. Does this feel like what Trackhouse has done with Project 91 as well?
That's the Toyota version of it, isn't it? Potentially, this may be the kickoff for it. If you'd said to me 16, 18 months ago, in the space of the next 18 months, you're going to get Kimi Räikkönen, Kamui Kobayashi, Jenson Button, and Shane Van Gisbergen in NASCAR, I would have laughed you out of the room. But Kamui is one of the big honchos in the boardroom now at Toyota, as well as driving. So he kind of probably went, "Can I do this, please?" And they've decided to give him I was going to say the keys, but not really, the push button start now, to this Camry IMS. Jenson Button is going to be in that race as well. So that's another series that these two have raced against each other in: WEC, Formula One, Super GT, and others. Those two seem to be a bit inseparable. But yeah, really excited to see what Kamui can do. He's the pole lap record holder at Le Mans from a couple of years ago in the Toyota. He was Mr. Excitement at times during his Formula One career and in GP2 before that. So yeah, get him in there, get him amongst it. Those races at Indianapolis have been silly and potty beyond belief over the last couple of years. So if you can add a Kamui doing dive bombs at that final complex of corners on the last lap going for a checkered flag, all hell could break loose. It's going to be interesting. Can't wait.
Yeah, and some more comments as well. Matthew Owens, I can't say that we've ever had a technical issue in the history of USRN. No. Zero. Well, I don't know. Maybe we need to start doing these on Skype, because I know it's been completely flawless a couple of times I've joined you guys. So I don't know. Maybe it's something for us to consider in the future. Also saying, can't wait to see Kamui. Hopefully NBC will actually pay attention to him. I can't recall a single mention of Kvyat in the same race last year. Well, Matthew, I got to say, I know one of your favorite play-by-play broadcasters, Rick Allen's back for another year at NBC. So I think there is something to look forward to on that front, and over the next few weeks with them coming back to do the second half of the year. But in all seriousness, absolutely, certainly hope that they would pay a little bit of attention to that story at least. And you're right. I've already forgotten that Kvyat came over and did a couple races. It was kind of disappointing to see how little he was mentioned on the broadcast. So hopefully Kobayashi doesn't get the same treatment from our broadcast partners over on the NASCAR side of things. Adam Lemery asks, okay, guys, now who do you want to see compete in the NASCAR Cup Series from other forms of motorsports? Matt, I guess I'll go ahead and pose that question to you first. Who would you like to see come over?
Wow. That's a broad question. I don't know. Lewis Hamilton's driven one before, of course. It'd be cool to see him just come and have a dabble, just to see what he thought of it. And he had that run in Tony Stewart's old Mobil 1 car at Watkins Glen, of course, all those years ago, with then did the car swap. So that'd be cool. Just a very good question, Adam. I don't have a name I can pull really off the top of my head that we haven't already seen. But talking of Van Gisbergen, there is rumblings of Brody Kostecki, Cam Waters, and Will Brown all potentially coming across from supercars over the next little while to have a go in some form of NASCAR competition. So let's follow that story closely and see if it comes to anything. Brody Kostecki probably top of that list, but give Cali Rovanpera a go out WRC. He'll be broadside everywhere, but it'll be good fun to watch.
Yeah, Lewis is at the top of my list for sure. And I'd like to see Max Verstappen give it a go as well. I think that obviously they've got a great rivalry in Formula One. I don't know that you could get them in the same race. Like you got Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen at COTA earlier this year. But, whoever it is, Fernando Alonso certainly comes to mind as well. I know he's teased the idea of trying everything. He tested that car in the seat swap with Jimmy Johnson not so long ago. So we'll see where it goes from here. But yeah, lots of options, not just from F1, but rally as well, all sorts of disciplines. Upright Fossil says that internationally, race car drivers recognize NASCAR road races as a lot of fun. In one weekend, Kimi gave more interviews with a smile than several years in Formula One. Yeah, I think Kimi certainly had a great experience in the 2 races that he's done so far, and thinking back to 2011 as well. Matthew Owens says, nothing lights my fire like Rick Allen, Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, and a race at the IMS Road Course. Not just Dale Jr., doing play-by-play, something he has zero experience doing before NBC decided to have him try that. So should be an interesting experience once again for sure.
There's only one word in that sentence from Matthew that's true, and it's Indianapolis. Otherwise, he's lying.
There you go. Let's see. Upright Possible saying, I would like to see some rally drivers do road courses. The bumping and banging shouldn't bother them as much as the open wheel drivers. Very good point there as well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think it's a great time to be a NASCAR fan in terms of being, at least aware of different disciplines of motorsports and knowing who these big names are coming here to the United States to try their hand at stock car racing. Who knows who we're going to see next? Certainly didn't expect the Kobayashi announcement this week. All the attention seemed to be on the Garage 56 entry, but certainly welcome news nonetheless to be in a third 2311 car. He's certainly going to be in good equipment as well. Now we move on to our third story and some IndyCar news. First reported by Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com. Conor Daly and Ed Carpenter Racing have agreed to part ways effective immediately. Daly's been with ECR for 3.5 years and currently sits 20th in the NTT IndyCar Series point standings. Now both Carpenter and Daly have released statements. This first from Carpenter. This is the most difficult decision I have made as a team owner because I respect Conor and know what he means to IndyCar and its fans. Our team has not been performing at the level we are capable of this year. And despite making technical changes and investments in the offseason, 2023 has been extremely challenging. I have put a great deal of consideration into the current state of our team and realize it is my obligation to our employees, partners, and supporters to do whatever is necessary to elevate our team's competitiveness. We sincerely wish Conor continued success and will cheer him on wherever he goes next. And Daly himself releasing a statement as well. Although we've mutually decided that it's in our best interest to take different paths, I'd like to thank Ed Carpenter Racing for the past 3.5 seasons. I'm grateful to everyone who has supported me past, present, and into the future. I look forward to taking on the next opportunities that await, and I want to thank the fans for being with me on this ride. Now, the number 20 BitNile.com Chevrolet will continue as a full-time entry for the remainder of the 2023 season. The status of Renus VK's number 21 BitNile.com Chevrolet and Ed Carpenter's Oval's only number 33 BitNile.com Chevrolet will remain unaffected. Now, interestingly enough, at the end of May, Feeder Series America reported that 2022 Indy Next champion Linus Lundqvist would be testing an IndyCar with Ed Carpenter Racing on June 8th. That's tomorrow. This makes the timing of Daly being let go today on June 7th more interesting. A few IndyCar competitors wish Daly the best on social media, but one comment from Tony Kanaan stuck out saying, quote, "That is low, not cool at all." Photo taken by James Black from Penske Entertainment. Kobe, do you think Conor Daly's poor performances led to him being out of his seat? And what type of driver should Ed Carpenter Racing put in a number 20 Chevrolet to replace him?
Yeah, man, I'm sure the poor performances had a little bit to do with it, but looking at Carpenter Racing across the board, outside of the Indianapolis 500, they've really underperformed. The road and street course program is really nowhere. Even on the other oval tracks at Texas, Gateway, and Iowa, they haven't really shown much pace there either. So I think as a whole, ever since Joseph Newgarden left that organization to go to Team Penske, we've really seen this team take a huge step back, and they've also lost some personnel over the years to some bigger IndyCar teams and all of that. So I wouldn't necessarily try to make Conor Daly the scapegoat in this situation. Try to make it seem like that he's the problem, and it's just an unfortunate situation, as Ed Carpenter rightfully said in his statement. We all know how much Conor Daly means to the IndyCar paddock and to the fans, because Conor Daly is one of the most popular drivers in the NTT and IndyCar series, and it's certainly going to be odd for all of the people who love Conor to see him missing for the remainder of the season, unless he's able to pick up a ride somewhere. And looking back at this story, and reading the press release talking about how Bitnall is going to stay on board for the remainder of the season on VK's car, and whoever the next driver is in the 20, and then Ed Carpenter's final few oval races this season. I actually went back and found a article from the Indy Star. I remember reading right before Conor ran the Daytona 500, and in that Indy Star article, Conor was talking about how he's had to fend off teams from other racing series and teams in IndyCar from trying to take his sponsor Bitnall. And Conor told the Indy Star this statement. He when he was talking about the CEO of Bitnall, Todd Alt, Conor said, I quote, "They're getting hit up by every single team in motorsports. Everyone is trying to take this sponsor. I find out who has morals and who doesn't with these teams and how they interact." And then Daly goes on to say that the CEO of Bitnall is super loyal. And that's something that I'm incredibly thankful of. And it's very interesting to hear those comments now. And it seems like Bitnall is going to stay on with Ed Carpenter Racing, and Conor Daly is the one getting the boot. I guess it just goes to show how things change very quickly in the motorsports world. And Ben, you also mentioned the timing as well. Feeder Series America, when they reported at the very end of May that Linus Lundqvist would be testing for Ed Carpenter Racing tomorrow. And it's interesting, the day before Linus Lundqvist's test, that Ed Carpenter Racing announced that they mutually agreed to part ways with Conor Daly. So I do think that the timing there is super interesting. And then the last part of the question you were asking, who do I think they should put in the number 20 Chevrolet? Because we don't have any inside knowledge, but based on what we know, it seems like Linus Lundqvist might very well get his IndyCar debut soon. But I do think Linus is very deserving of an IndyCar seat. It's unfortunate he wasn't able to get a full-time ride this season. But at the same time, with a team like Ed Carpenter Racing, where you're struggling everywhere outside of Indianapolis, I think it would be very important to put an experienced driver in that number 20 for the remainder of the season, who can help out a much younger Renus VK with like setups and stuff. I think like a Ryan Hunter-Reay comes to mind to me of an experienced veteran who would really do a good job to try to get that program moving forward and get them to improve. But I also understand wanting to get a look at the next young talent like Linus Lundqvist, who a lot of people have been very high on.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what happens there. Big shame for Conor, as you said. He's a big fan favourite, but he just hasn't worked for them this year. He's only got one top 10 to his name, and that was 8 at the 500. Even VK, who I was expecting to really kick on this year, has kind of really been nowhere apart from at Indianapolis. As you said, Kobe, their overall package has been much better than their road and street course. Big test at Barber tomorrow. A lot of teams going down to Barber to test in the run-up to Road America, which is IndyCar's next race next weekend. So expect a few news stories to come out of Barber, I expect, tomorrow. And we'll see who turns up in that car. If it is Linus Lundqvist getting a run and then getting a seat confirmed for, even if it's just for Road America as a one-off, potentially, we'll see. Indy Lights, or next champion from last year, has backing in terms of cash and probably sponsors as well. So that may be another thing that Ed may be searching for in terms of some cash flow into the team to change it up. Upright Fossil says Conor Daly, square jaw and all, needs to go to NASCAR Truck Series and work his way up the ranks. The guy's a solid chunk of muscle and needs a solid ride for his square jawed self. Big fan. Interesting to see what he comes out with on the next episode of the podcast. I'd like to see what Conor could do in IMSA. Get him in a GTD car or even up in the top class and see what he can do there and following his dad's footsteps. Of course, he was a multi-time Sebring 12-hour winner, was Derek, after his Formula One career. So, real shame to see Conor out. We'll have to follow this story over the next week or so and see where it goes. But kind of with you, Kobe, it looks like it may be the former British Formula 3 champion, Linus Lundqvist, getting the ride at ECR.
I hope it's not the end of Conor's IndyCar career, but at the same time, for Linus, after dominating what was Indy Lights is now Indy Next last year, I think that it's been unfortunate, but he hasn't been able to put together a full-time effort. So he would certainly be my top candidate to take that seat. But it'll also be interesting to see what Conor can make of this. And going to be an interesting podcast this week, I'm sure. Maybe there's some opportunities on the NASCAR side of things. I don't know that the money team would necessarily be an ideal landing spot for him in the long term, but maybe something in NASCAR trucks like Upright Fossil was suggesting, or who knows what the future is going to hold for Conor Daly at this point. Now, Matt, I'm going to hand it back over to you for the latest on the grid EPI update.
Thank you, Ben. And we've had a couple of races to report on from last week. We've already talked much about what's coming up this weekend. There was another race in France last week, and it was the latest round of the GT World Challenge Europe. Their 1,000-kilometer race at Paul Ricard, one for Mercedes by Raffaele Marciello, Jules Gounon, and Timur Bogoslawski. They were the winners of the just over 6-hour race on Saturday down at Ricard. And across in Japan at Suzuka, the latest round of Super GT, Yuji Kunimoto and Senna Sakaguchi winning for the Wed Sport team in a red flagged race. Didn't run to the full distance after a massive shunt towards the end for one of the Nissans just at the final chicane there. Good to see that driver involved, who was taken to hospital, was released this morning and is on the mend. So that's good news. The GT300 part of that race was won by Seiji Ara and Masataka Yanagida. So that is the results from the weekend. The top 10 remains unchanged for the third week in a row. And there it is on your screen now with Toyota guys first, second, third, fifth, seventh and eighth. All 6 of the Toyota Gazoo Racing Le Mans runners inside the top 8 of the EPI. Expect that to change though after the weekend. Every single person on that top 10 list you're seeing is in the race at Le Mans, apart from Felipe Lazier and Jack Hawksworth. So there's going to be much change going on this week. We've also got the latest round of the 24-hour series this weekend at Monza. That is a 12-hour race, 2-parter, 6 hours on Saturday and 6 on Sunday. And it's the opening round of the ADAC GT Masters series at Hockenheim over the weekend as well. So plenty of stuff going on outside of Le Mans, but obviously all focus will be on the 24 hours. We'll, I'm sure, talk about that race and the others in this slot next week and give you an update to the top 10.
Next, some more motorsports news from around the world. Proton Competition will enter its new Porsche 963 LMDH car in IMSA's GTP class at Road America on August 6th. Jimmy Bruni and Harry Tincknell will drive in the team's GTP debut in Eau Carcolate. They'll also be entering the FIA World Endurance Championship race at Monza on July 9th. Along with Road America, Proton plans to enter 2 additional IMSA races. We'll see Bruni and Tincknell compete at the IMS Road Course and Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. The team will announce a 3rd driver for Petit Le Mans at a later date, photo courtesy of Proton. NASCAR issued an L1 level penalty against the number 43 Legacy Motor Club Chevrolet of Eric Jones. Jones's car had a modified greenhouse in post-race inspection. The greenhouse is the top portion of the next-gen car, including the roof, front, and rear glass, everything from the top of the doors upward. Any team making modifications to this area would likely be an attempt to gain a competitive aerodynamic advantage. As a result, this means a loss of 60 owner and driver points, a loss of 5 playoff points if Jones qualifies for the postseason, including a 2-race suspension for crew chief Dave Ellens, who also got fined $75,000. And next, Matt, going to turn over to you for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Thank you, Kobe. Couple of pick a winner races, of course, to come this weekend. Le Mans, which we've talked about. MotoGP is back after their couple of weeks off. They're at Mugello for the Italian Grand Prix on Sunday, and NASCAR heads west to Sonoma for the next round of the Cup Series, the last Fox broadcast of the season. So looking forward to all 3 of those races. We'll start with our picks for MotoGP for the sprint race. As you can see, we've got a tie at the top now. Kobe has edged his way closer. He and Alex are tied on 17. So a chance for a couple of people maybe to steal a couple of points back this weekend. MotoGP at Mugello. Hard to pick against the Ducati to win at home, but I'm going to go with Marco Bezzecchi rather than Pecco Bagnaia.
And I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia. Seems like he's the easiest pick right now to win sprint. Oh my goodness. How long has it been since we had a MotoGP race? It feels like it's been forever, but I still think that Pecco Bagnaia is going to get the job done in the sprint race in Mugello.
And even though I'm a few points behind Jacoby and trying to catch you, I'm going to stick with you and say Pecco Bagnaia will win the sprint as well.
And now the pick a winner, which is probably the widest open we've had in terms of a pick a winner race this year. It is the Le Mans 24 Hours. Who knows? It could be any of all of the prototypes. I'm going to stick my neck out and say the number 6 Porsche will win, but who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely quite wide open, and I'm looking at the entry list right now and thinking how everyone's been performing so far, I'm actually going to go with a Ferrari to win. I think I'm going to go with the number 51 Ferrari. Really like what I've seen from James Calado, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Alessandro Perguidi. And I'm sure if a prancing horse wins Le Mans overall, the Tifosi back in Italy is going to be going absolutely crazy, and those Ferrari fans who are at the track as well.
All right, you guys are going to have to forgive me. My sports car knowledge is still a little bit more limited than Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR. Does Kamui Kobayashi drive the 7 for Toyota, or is it the 8?
7, I think.
Yeah, it's a 7.
That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure because I'm going to go with Kobayashi and the entry that he's driving and pick the number 7 to win overall. I know Toyota's got more competition than they've had in years here, but I don't know. Maybe that experience will help them. Give them a slight edge despite the BOP adjustments or whatever the case may be. But that's going to be my pick. But as Matt said, I think it's incredibly wide open this year. Kind of hard to predict a winner. But we're going to try anyway. It's the name of the game, right? Adam Lemery says MotoGP Sprint Pecco for me. And let's see. Does he have looks like that's it. So I guess, Matt, I'll hand it back over to you for Hots and Nuts.
Yes, and it's me and you, Ben, this week rather than Josh. We've given the week off as he prepares to call that 24-hour race at Le Mans over the weekend. So we'll start with Hots. I'm struggling with a hot from the weekend, I'll be totally honest with you. But I did enjoy the IndyCar race, even though I thought it was going to be rubbish. That's my then. Hot. It was better than I expected.
If you watched Grid Live Encore yesterday, as I see Adam Lemery's going with Toyota Gazoo number 7 as well for Le Mans, you might have seen my interview I did with Dale Quarterly and the story that he has continuing to compete in ARCA and ARCA West on the road courses as well in his early 60s. A fantastic run for him, finishing in 3rd. That's certainly my hot for this week, being out there the entire Portland weekend as well with our own Joe Samaniego. Grateful to have that experience again. Grateful to be back in California as well, heading to Sonoma this weekend with Brock Beard and LastCar.info. So lots to look forward to and lots to be thankful for last weekend as well. But Dale Quarterly's finish in particular stood out to me. That's my hot for this past weekend.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you. You and Joe's coverage of the weekend is certainly a standing hot, and we're looking forward to you being at the track this weekend and then Joe being back at Portland in a couple of weeks for Formula E, which will be an interesting watch, I'm sure. And my not is probably going to be from Formula E, actually from Jakarta from the weekend, was Dan Ticktum's radio rage after the second race, where he basically said, I'm leaving now, we're on the cool down lap, get me a taxi, I'm not interested in talking to anybody, because he ran out the battery with a lap and a half to go, and apparently that was the team's fault and not the person with his foot on the accelerator pedal.
Hopefully you can still hear me, Matt. I'm getting some notice that my connection might be unstable again. You still got me?
Yeah, I've got you.
Okay, sounds good. Hopefully we stick here. Matthew says, I wouldn't wish for Truck Series on anyone at this point. I think it's going back to one of Upright Fossil's previous comments. Half the drivers are dangerous to be around on the track. Yeah, well, we just had that discussion on Encore last night as well. I think there's a massive culture issue in not just the Truck Series, but NASCAR generally speaking, and intentional wrecks certainly a hot topic right now. So maybe that discussion will move forward a little bit and we can start improving things on that side of things as well. Upright Fossil then saying, well, straight to Xfinity then for Conor Daly, but road cars sounds like it would be a great fit as well, talking about IMSA. For my not, I guess, I mean, again, I hate doing it. I feel like a broken record because I do it so often here, but a little bit disappointed in Fox's TV coverage. I know it was a difficult weekend for them being split between both Portland and Gateway, but they really rushed off the air very quickly after the Portland race, despite the fact that you had the Gibbs teammates going at each other with Sammy Smith and John Hunter Nemechek, and then barely seeing just a tiny little bit of the kind of sort of altercation, I guess you can call it, between Jeb Burton and Chandler Smith and some folks over at Colleague Racing there as well. I wish they could have stayed on the air a little bit longer, or at least bumped the coverage to FS2 or at least the Fox streaming app to give us a little bit more context as to what was going on there. So, again, a little bit disappointed in that. And it's the constant cycle, right? I said during the Rolex pre-race show, I was excited to see, or wrap-up show, I guess. I wasn't really on the pre-race show, but I said I was excited to see Fox come back again from a NASCAR side of things. And then already 25 laps into the clash, I was frustrated with the number of commercials and the camera angles and everything. Kind of feeling that way about NBC again, but I'm sure halfway into the Nashville race and later on this year, it's going to be the constant cycle of wishing for the other network to come back to get a change of pace because, we're frustrated with the lack of coverage on that side as well. So certainly some things to improve there going forward. But then again, what else is new? Because we've been saying that for a number of years now. That's my knock for this weekend is the TV coverage. Still hoping that they can take a step forward and help give us some more of those stories from the garage rather than just rushing off the air so quickly.
I feel like I think I brought this up on the show at some point before this year where we get to the NBC, end of the NBC portion. We'll have Fox back in the new year. Great. Daytona 500 with Fox. Excellent. And then it gets to this point of the year and you're like, I've kind of had enough of Fox now. Looking forward to NBC coming. Well, some people looking forward to NBC coming back. One thing I will say good about NBC was their IndyCar coverage at the weekend was excellent. And they interviewed almost the top 7 or 8 before they went off the air, including showing the podium after the race. So, and a good bump of the ratings for IndyCar. Of course, they were kind of fortunate that 2-hour Thunder delay, they managed to get all of the IndyCar race in Detroit in before the NASCAR race went back to green. So the IndyCar ratings is a hot because that was up again this week. Yeah,
well, I will say, and I see Matthew here in the chat as well saying NBC season means syncing the TV with MRN and PRN for me. I think you're certainly not alone in that, Matthew. I will say from a production standpoint, I actually don't think NBC is that bad until we get to the playoffs. And then when it gets to the playoffs, it's borderline. It's been insufferable for me the last several years because that's all the booth ever talks about. That's all the TV cover. I mean, I still remember when Bubba Wallace had his 3rd place finish at the Brickyard 400 when he was driving the Petty car in 2019. I think it was 90 minutes of the NASCAR America post-race show we had to wait before we got an interview for him because that was the regular season finale at the time. And they continually just went from playoff driver to playoff driver to playoff driver, and I think got to most of a 16 before they got to the guy who finished 3rd in the actual crown jewel race that they were just broadcasting. So again, and I'm sure like we see it with Fox on the truck side of things as well, everything's centered around the playoffs that time of year, but that's when it gets particularly annoying for me. And not just because I'm obviously a proponent of a full season championship and don't like the playoffs. And Matthew pointing out as well, again, we'll never forget NBC interviewing Flavor Flav. Yeah, I mean, I get that that's a big name at the race, and he's living it up with Will Power, and I guess that you kind of have to talk about that a little bit, but they certainly pushed that story quite a bit as well. So, but again, I thought aside from that, they did a good job covering the storylines of the new Detroit circuit and everything. So I certainly prefer their IndyCar coverage to our NASCAR coverage at this point. But again, I don't know. Maybe they'll surprise us and they'll take a step up this year, but who knows?
Yep, got a couple of weeks to find out before we get to Nashville for NBC after the week off. So yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to your coverage of Sonoma Bennett the weekend and the Le Mans 24 hours, of course. Let's get out of here and we can go and catch up on some more Le Mans storylines.
That sounds good. Well, before we do that, let's take a look at our upcoming schedule on Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, if you're like me and out here on the West Coast this week. We'll have the Women in Motorsports program back for you. Hopefully, I'll be able to join Joe and Daniel for that, so stay tuned for that show Friday morning. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Sonoma Raceway. And then an important programming note for the 3rd consecutive week, Grid Live Encore moves to Tuesday. On Monday night, I will be on a red-eye back to the East Coast and landing in early Tuesday morning. But by Tuesday evening, I'll have plenty of rest and be ready to bring you all on course. Stay tuned for that, a full week of Xfinity at Sonoma. Now, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 600 subscribers. Now help us reach our new goal of 700 subscribers and then on to 800, 900, and the road to 1,000 and beyond that. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications every time we upload a new video or host a new show. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. I'm getting that internet notice again, but we'll continue on for now. Follow all of our social media platforms as well: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, and so forth. And visit our website as well, gridranking.com. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Deschelle, Mark, Robin, and David in investing each month in the Grid Network. We encourage you to join the amazing group of people who keep us on the air. Once we hit $500 per month, we can start expanding our coverage by adding new members to the team and having our crew on site to cover more races on a more regular basis. So link is in the video description below, as it is to our one-time donation option. If you'd rather select that, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link. Get your name on the board, invest as much as you want. Consider buying it for a specific on-air personality, buy them a cup of coffee, and they will thank you here on the air. For Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish and Matt White from Grid EPI, I'm Ben Schneider, also from lastcar.info. Stay tuned for more coverage from Sonoma this weekend from me and Brock Beard. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on Grid Network.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.